So that's what he works for, and we train him. So when they find something, they get this Kong. And this Kong only comes out during work, and it's the most special thing in their lives, basically. This is his playtime. So we got to make sure work is the fun time and be at home. I mean, they're still comfortable at home, but if I make home too fun for him, he wouldn't want to come to work. So obviously, he likes work days and hates weekends, not vice versa. But anyways, there's a lot that goes into it. I could spend hours talking about the training and stuff, the continuous training that goes into them and stuff. But one thing is that when we do train them, they come across so many bags and so many different things that we have to make 100% sure if they do sit, there's going to be something in it. So if they don't, and they're sitting on a sandwich, and we shut the system out for an hour, that doesn't look anything. So there's a lot of training that does go into them, and they're very special, and they're mobile, and they go around the metropolitan area, and we're constantly out there every day. We'll switch different parts of the city just to be, we call it consistently and consistent. We're in different spots at different times all the time. So with that, there's like. Thank you. Yeah.
One thing I'd like to add is that Kevin Hubbard is the TSA director for this region for these canine bomb sniffing dogs. And Kevin is, I don't think he's trying to make me feel good. He's explained to me that our 4 bomb dogs and the handlers are the best he's ever seen. Just the way they work. Jim Sims is the surgeon. He's off today. And one thing I like, and I think John can vouch for this, is that you're getting your money's worth. Sims does not allow these guys to have lunch. You better bring your lunch with you. They eat on the system in their car. I was out with them the other day, and John has to run to his car and stand there and eat, waiting for the next exercise. Sims is all 4 of them are just hard workers, and they really take good care of your system as far as the bomb dog goes, and I couldn't be more impressed.
So if you try to take his Kong from me, like. That's another time.
So I don't know if you have any questions.
Parker, what do you do at the 4th of July when people are buying fireworks at Fred Meyer's, etc.?
What do we do?
Well, the smell would be the same. wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
it is similar, but a little bit different to them. So if they're on the system and the dog's alerted, obviously we'd have to take some sort of action and find out what it actually is. But that's a good question, but it's a little bit different to the dogs.
Dr. Clark, you had a question?
So I think we're impressed with the efforts and the progress. And I remember the incidents in East Multnomah County several years ago. We're sad for the individuals involved and the community. Really, the state legislature became very sensitive. So, because the Lloyd's district is a portal to downtown, and downtown is a destination, we can have tremendous improvement in East Multnomah County, which is appreciated and needed. Yet, as we see that people who are passing through that portal in Lloyd may feel, maybe I'm apprehensive, I don't have a sense of trust. So that becomes an important area to deal with, which you said you are, and we appreciate that. Downtown being a destination, the same is true. You find that people, regardless of where they live, they have a sense of destination security, portal security. Like people getting on, or they, we can be doing great things in the suburbs, but inner city, or vice versa. Maybe the airport. I'm not trying to cite inner Portland, where I grew up, as being bad. I'm just suggesting that continue to do what you're doing, and you probably already imagine that destinations are important to people, sort of the portal neighborhoods as well.
Oh yeah, the big thing for us, I want people to feel safe on the entire system, no matter where they go. And there are some stations, I think Harry alluded to it, we put our officers where we're having the most difficulties. And so I put them in those areas that are getting the press. When they go there, hopefully they can see a police officer when they arrive, which will put them at ease. There are some stations we don't have a lot of problems with, and to tell you the truth, we don't frequent those that much because things are going well there. And the ones that aren't going so well, we make sure there's cops there so people go through there, they feel comfortable. And that's a big piece.
So But we also supplement with the contracted force. So at Holiday Park, there was, when school would let out and all the kids would congregate, some people felt uncomfortable. So I had security placed on that platform after the school. And that, all of a sudden, we saw a decrease in the number of incidents at that location. So it's really we work very closely together, with the contracted force, with the transit police force, what type of resource is the best suited for a particular problem, and that's what the commander and I discuss, and we develop a plan jointly to do that.
We also been having school police come out this summer, school police officers, or if they're not involved in some kind of youth activities like camps, they've been coming out and riding the trains with my officers so they can also be present. And most of those folks know some of the kids. We've also, Shelley Lomax, gosh, would have been about almost a year ago, had given us 10 monthly passes to give to the youth gang outreach folks. And so they do ride your system out there being seen and being observed by the youth who know them. And they do a tremendous job of helping keeping things down in the system too. So we have a number of assets that come in and give us a hand. And so we place those in areas that are having some of those difficulties.
Dr. Stovall, you got a question?
So I want to echo what Steve was saying in regards to the commendation of, as we've seen, as Neil mentioned, in regards to our overall volume, we've seen that increase, but we've seen our crime statistics improve over that time frame. So that's a challenge to do, and I want to certainly commend everybody who has had their part in adjusting that. Two quick questions. In regards to the east side, we see that as, of course, the highest situation. I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's primarily due to the gateway area, and that's a big assumption that I'm making, but
It's a correct assumption.
but it's where multiple lines meet. I think it's the only location where that many lines meet, and you have that much transfer from trains to buses and trains to trains. Would that be a correct assumption?
It's absolutely correct. It's Gateway, we're always seeking to make improvements in that area. That's another area where we have slated lighting improvements. We made some pedestrian improvements earlier this year, and we're making lighting improvements, although that'll still take some time to do. We're looking at other security improvements such as fencing, and it's a challenge. I'm not going to say it isn't a challenge. It is a challenge, but we also have a lot of presence at that location because we know of the challenges.
But as one looks at this information, you get right off the gate, you can get pretty alarmed until you understand kind of what's behind it. It's just a sheer number of people moving through one key area in the region that actually brings. While it doesn't, essentially, we're not going to be comforted by the level of crime. We do, and we can understand basically that the reason that it is so high is because we just have so many people moving through that part of the region. And again, Steve referenced this. It's I find it fascinating as I look at the numbers specifically for Gresham. Of course, that's where I live and I represent. It as I look at those numbers, there are some places in the region that actually have higher numbers or very close to that people have assumed were better in the crime statistics. So that's something that's fascinating, interesting. Is there a breakdown available at all, or can you speak to it in regards to violent crime? I mean, this totals
Yes.
all crime, but is there a perspective where we can see, if there's a specific kind of region where violent crime tends to happen?
Yes, I have a detailed report that will be made available to you. It breaks it down by not only large geographical area, but it breaks it down by station, and you'll see the types of crimes in that particular area. But for the most part, violent crime is very, very few. It's very, very few. What we see are more the theft type of crimes and things such as harassment, maybe some menacing, which doesn't result in any violent physical harm, but nevertheless needs to be addressed because it gives people a sense of being uncomfortable. We want people to be comfortable. But we're always looking at those numbers and making adjustments accordingly. As I said, that we've built some partnerships, very strong partnerships with the Gresham Police Department. Not only do they have officers on our force, but we work hand in hand and trying to address the different issues that are in that lookout.
One thing I want to add too about some of the violent crime, and this is not saying that it's all right, is that a lot of the violent crime is not necessarily unknown person to unknown person. Many times it's people that know each other that happen to meet on the max, whether it be some kind of a gang issue or a long-running feud or a domestic violence type situation. I'm not condoning any of those, but I'm saying a lot of it, we have, you know, unknown to unknown, but a lot of that is people that actually know each other that happen to meet there that settle their feud, you know, having to settle a feud on our system. And so I guess just a stranger just coming up to you and assaulting you is not a common practice on transit. From time to time it happens, and oftentimes there's something that precipitates that. One thing we try to encourage people to do, if they see behavior, rather than, it's better that if you see something, say something, rather than saying something yourself, because sometimes if you say something yourself, that then brings some of the problems to you. So that's part of the education piece. And one more thing.
So, if you'd like, I'd be happy to sit down with you and go through the detailed report with you as well.
That's not needed. Yeah. No, no, I didn't mean it that way. I just saying that feedback you just gave me is good. And the key point
But
that
we're always paying attention to the numbers. We're always talking about the numbers.
and the key point that you made in regards to violent crime against unknown persons is a good thing to remember. You know, and that's generally the sense, even in the general population away from transit. You know, violent crime against unknown persons is relatively low, and we maintain that once you get to the max. So,
Right.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
One of your biggest problems on that is not the crime itself, but the perception of crime. So it's all of our jobs to work on that perception through your communication folks and stuff like that, because you're much safer on the max or the bus than you are just walking a normal street. There's presence there by the police, there's cameras, there's drivers, there's operators, there's supervisors that you normally don't see on the street and stuff.
Director Rosser, yes.
And actually, just some comments. Number one, I want to thank you for all of your hard work. It makes a difference. We know that, and we appreciate that.
Well, you're welcome.
And, you know, it's important that safety be a priority. And I want to thank Neil, too, because I know that Neil has made safety his priority. And again, it does make a real difference. I was going to comment on the perception issue, and clearly we see reports in the media and hear comments in various settings about crime on max. What we're really dealing with is a perception left over from several years ago, and that's no longer the reality, but we're still dealing with that perception, and it's going to take us a very long time to get past that. And so having your presence and the hard work that you're doing, that's how we turn that around. So thank you. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is Neil indicated I used to be city manager in Tiger, and the partnership between the agencies is so important. And you've addressed the benefits to Trimet, kind of the regional thing. I did want to kind of give the local perspective. Tiger started out with one officer assigned to Trimet. By the time I left Tiger a year ago, we were up to 5 officers. I don't know if that's still the same.
Yeah, I think the sergeant 4 right now, so there's 5 total.
Yeah. And I think that's really testimony to how successful Tiger feels that whole program is. And I think really from the local jurisdiction's perspective, this really is kind of a sales pitch to other jurisdictions to get involved and to get people on when openings come up. But we send officers out, or we get Tiger sent officers out, and 2 things. Number one, it helps with recruitment and advancement opportunities at the local level. In the police community, Portland is the big kahuna in the region, and is seen as, for many officers, as the place to be because of the variety of exposures and the type of work and stuff. And sometimes in the burbs, we're kind of seen as the sleepy little guys, and it's kind of hard to hold on to folks. By giving our officers the chance to get out there and work in the larger environment, A, they're getting experience they can't get at the local level. B, it's giving them challenge and opportunity and re-energizes them. And we get better officers back. I think the other thing is that by working with other members of your team, the relationships are built. So when they come back and they're working at the local level, they have contacts and they know who to call. And a lot of what they are able to do, they'll see stuff, whether it's at a transit center or a bus or other things, and they can jump in and they can head off stuff before it even becomes a transit issue. And I know Tiger has had a lot of success dealing with gangs. I think a lot of it is due to some of the exposure that they got, various officers have received here at Trimet. So that is a wonderful model, and I don't know who came up with it, but kudos to them. It's very successful, it's very beneficial, and I know that Commander Krebs and here, you guys are really the key at making that work as well as you do, so thank you.
Well, you're welcome, thank you.
Anything down there?
Just thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
For your service, thank you.
I guess I do want to say thank you. I see market improvement when I'm out. It feels good to me when I'm out there, so thank you for what you do. I do have a question about the overall kind of high standard, the metric you're using, the 1.2 per 100,000. Is that something that's nationwide, something that people collect data on and compare, apples to apples with other properties around the United States?
That's difficult.
Yeah.
What we put into the mix is different from area to area, and even definition of some of those crimes are different. So, for example, when we were having an increase in electronic devices, we quite frankly weren't tracking that in particular. We've changed that now. Now we're tracking the actual electronic device thefts, so we can see what are we really dealing with. Some agencies were only dealing with thefts that were over $1,000, where we track everything. So when you look at our numbers, gee, they're high, but no, but they're only tracking ones that are over $1,000. So most of ours are minor thefts.
Well, that's why I asked the question. It's very hard to compare statistics, but I was curious how we compare to some of our other transit agencies around the United States. It's probably very hard to understand that. Then the second question I had is reported versus actual. I mean, is there a correlation that you think in terms of what that might be?
I mean, the people that aren't reporting, you mean?
Yes, I mean, because you only know about the reported crimes.
Correct,
And
correct.
so,
Yeah, that's true, and I think one thing is, it's interesting, if you put more police officers on the system, you probably get more reported crime, because a police officer will be available right there. They'll be saying, well, you know what, someone stole my wallet yesterday, and I'm glad I saw you, because I want to report it. So, I mean, there's definitely crime that is not reported. People become apathetic, they think, I'm not going to call because nothing will be done. And that's part of our job, let them know that if you report crime on transit, we will do the very best we can to solve that particular crime. Even with our cameras, we can go back, a week later, in some cases, and see if someone we had a missing purse, and we're able to watch the person. We never got the purse back. We're able to go back and look and see how the purse was actually taken. So, and we try to follow up, but sometimes we just can't get the culprit. But it's there's definitely unreported crime, and I think that we can do better at that. Let people know you have a crime on Max. Let us know about it.
okay, thanks. Did you have
So
something?
just one additional question, and each of us and the board members who are not here would thank you as well, so we really appreciate it. The question relates to the arrival of a new line, Max Line, maybe we have an express bus service, or imagine when we opened the Green Line, what occurred among opinions shared by some merchants within Clackamas Town Center, county sheriff. We have another line that will be opening up shortly, and sooner than we can imagine. You folks are doing a tremendous job within the corridor of service that we provide. Do we have any sense of what occurs outside of our service area? And I know that you have a relationship between transit police and community policing. not trying to pick on the Clackamas Town Center as an example specific, but are we seeing any evidence that transit is an escalator? Does it bring crime to a community? Might we see that when the Orange Line is built? What are your thoughts?
So there's a couple things. We did a study on the yellow line, and it was interesting on the yellow line is that people were concerned it's going to bring crime to our community. What it brought was a lot of vibrancy and some new businesses. If you look right on the yellow line, when it first opened up, there was a spike in crime right on the line itself. That was the crime, not the crime rate, but the actual numbers of crimes. I would suspect the crime rate itself probably stayed the same, but we measured just the number of crimes spiked a little bit. But once it opened up, the crime outside that area started to drop, and so did the crime right in the area stop. But right when it opened, a little spike, you had people starting to come. There's a lot of bike thefts for whatever reason. But I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. When you bring people together, you know, when you bring any segment of the population to a specific place, there's always that potential for an assault, some kind of a harassment, some kind of a theft. And I don't think, I've been talking a lot about this Trimet bring crime. You know, it will probably bring an increase in the number of crimes, but your crime rate's probably gonna stay the same. And that's the same way with anything. If you build a Walmart, you're gonna bring more people, and the shopless crime's gonna go up. So the crime is gonna go up, but the crime rate should be about the same because you're bringing people there. I have a lot of discussions about the Clackamas Town Center, and some of the things that happens is these folks come there, but it's up to the merchants to make sure that they're doing their job. If they decide to, when more people start to come, they also got to take their own, I guess, self-defense, hire more security. They need to be better thoughtful on how they're going to place their merchandise, those kinds of things. Everyone always seems to want to blame Trimet for their problems. But they need to take a look at themselves, see what they can do to deal with the increase of population. But I don't hear any thank you from the Clackamas Town Center thanking you for all the merchants you brought us. All I hear is that you brought these problems. But those people that come in there now, they've increased because you guys have given them the ability to get there. That's good people and people that are committing crimes. So I think that I become kind of defensive. I'm not even a Trimet employee, but I'm telling you, I think that I get kind of a little bit ruffled when people try to blame Max for their problems. That's not the case. It's a community the Max is a moving sidewalk, and that's all that it is. And the community has to develop some thoughtful planning around when the Max comes. Those kind of things. I'm making sense, but I don't get really.
It's community policing.
Yeah, exactly right. And that means not just Trimet. That includes Clackamas Town Center. That includes the theater.
I would just add, I have heard thank yous from the owners of Clackamas Town Center for the additional customers they bring. They actually are very aware that the additional volume is very good for business.
See nothing else? Again, thank you very much for coming. It's been very
Thanks.
helpful. So did you want to introduce the next item?
Well, I certainly do that, but ask John Bell to come up. We're going to do, we have 2 additional reports for you this morning, so I think we're running behind schedule, so bear with us, I appreciate it. But one is I wanted John L. to give you a brief update on the low-income fare mitigation program. And I wanted to just acknowledge at the outset the thanks to Board Member Saragosa and Dr. Bethel as well for participating in our sessions with social service providers as we began to develop this program. But I'll let John Al tell you a little bit about how this program is beginning to be developed and deployed in participation and anticipation of September 1st fare changes. John Al.
Right now, and I'll do my best to follow bomb dogs, so I'm not sure how we'll do. But thank you, General Manager. Good morning, President Warner, members of the board. For the record, my name is John L. Bell, Director of Diversity and Transit Equity here at Trimet. Today, I have the pleasure of giving you a quick update on where we are with our mitigation program. First, I'd like to read a quote, and Board Member Saragosa will remember this quote from the great roundtable conversation we had several weeks back. But it's on the front page of your update here, and I quote, thank the Trimet Board of Directors for its vision and compassion in making the mitigation program possible, end quote. That was from one of our roundtable participants. So thank you again for your leadership in this venture. As a reminder, he directed staff to develop mitigation strategies to help offset the cost of the fare increases in FY13 adopted budget. As mentioned, on July 12th, we held a roundtable conversation with over 12 nonprofit leaders across the region at Concordia University. During our facilitated conversation, we asked participants if the three proposed mitigation strategies I brought forth to you and that we were proposing were frankly on the right track. And as a reminder, those three were expand the current program and increase the commission, implement a small grants program, and leverage resources with government and philanthropic partners. The group agreed that we were in fact on the right track and encouraged us to move forward. Additionally, there was great interest, and I think this probably came to a surprise to me, but there was huge interest in working with Trimet to implement the various strategies. To that end, we will be kicking off an advisory ad hoc group, which was one of the recommendations that came forth from the group. This ad hoc group will help Trimet in the process of implementing the various mitigation strategies and provide an ongoing conduit to our nonprofit leaders who are on the ground every single day working with low-income communities. I'd like to echo General Manager McFarland and thank both Dr. Bethel as well as Consuelo, Board Member Consuelo Cervosa for both their gracious opening as well as the close of the meeting. That was well received. As a quick background, you'll remember that 35% of Trimet's riders are on less than $20,000 a year, and 25% of Trimet's riders are minority, and of those, 52% are transit dependent. So, as a result of months of conversations, I've recommended to the General Manager that we do a couple of things that, frankly, in my purview, are revolutionary in many aspects, and having taken a look at models across the country, really, I believe will be the forefront of mitigation efforts. The first recommendation is to increase our current commission from 5% to 20% and include nonprofits serving low-income populations. Secondly is work with Ride Connection in the development of a small grants program to help organizations meet the additional needs that we know their clients will be faced with this upcoming year. As part of this, a recommendation is to establish a leverage fund and explore opportunities with local and national foundations. There was huge interest in this aspect. It's one thing to have this allocation of resources, but what are the opportunities of working with the United Ways and Northwest Health Foundations and others to identify how we might leverage this pool of funds for ongoing needs. And lastly, to establish a leverage fund to foster matching opportunities with government agencies. There's been ongoing conversations with a number of our government partners, many of which obviously are impacted with budgetary constraints. They're currently purchasing fares from us at certain levels. There was some interest that if Trimet, in the course of exploring these mitigation options, allocated a portion of the resources to a potential leverage fund, there might be interest in purchasing more than what they're currently purchasing, if it was like a 50-50 match or some sort of match. So where are we with next steps? We've sent out applications to nonprofit organizations informing them of the new low-income pilot for nonprofits serving low-income populations. A training will be held at the end of August to review what the ordering processes are, the reporting requirements, etc. We will continue to work with Ride Connection to hone in on a small grants program, and we'll continue to explore partnerships and leveraging opportunities with government and foundation partners. As mentioned, we'll also kick off that ad hoc group, which I think will provide a lot of great input and guidance. And as always, I'll keep you abreast as we move forward, and we'll be back in a few months to update you on where we are. Thank you. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
I'd just like to make some comments. That during that meeting, there was a lot of great questions, there was a lot of enthusiasm, and really thanking Trimet and the board for their courageousness in terms of stepping forward and saying, how do we support and mitigate the impact that we'll have on some of our communities. And one of the things that I was thinking about, hearing folks talking about how do we work with foundations or other opportunities to be able to leverage the money that would go forward. So there was a lot of enthusiasm, and what I recognized is that this is a really great opportunity for Trimet and the partnerships that will be built to be able to move it forward and support Trimet in the work that we're doing. So it was great. It was very heartening to see that people were coming together around this. And thank you, Jonelle. This has been a huge project in such a short time, and I just really saw folks respond to the efforts. So thank you for your leadership in this.
Just also note, Mr. Bell has just celebrated his first anniversary as a Trimet employee, which we duly celebrated earlier.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
John?
Other comments or thoughts? Again, I echo what you just heard, your good work. I'm looking forward to hearing after you've got the proposals, I guess, back, how you're going to actually put the money out. And I don't know when you're looking at doing that, but I think that's the next big step, I assume, in this program.
Great. So we'll come back and update you as that progresses.
Okay.
Great.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, then there's the stuff that we always love to talk about, cash flow and fund balance policy. Right?
Yes, and again, Beth Hemmel, our CFO, is not at all acting like a short timer, I will tell you. There's been nothing but, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done. And this is one of the things on her short list. So she has had the opportunity to share this with the Finance Committee, and we wanted to bring it back to the full board for consideration.
Yes, thank you. Not only do I get to follow a bomb sniffing dog by Janelle's excellent presentation, I will try to keep this short, but I do think it's very important because all of the great outreach and everything we do service all depends on a stable financial foundation, and I think this is one of the important legs of that.
A little louder, please.
Okay, sorry, is that better? So you have the presentation in front of you. I'm going to just walk through the copy, and there are also copies outside. What I want to do today is provide some background information that's relevant to your consideration of a policy about the level of fund balance that Trimet has. There was a lot of discussion about this during the budget, fund balance contingency. I think a lot of misunderstanding about it. I did this presentation a few years ago to the Finance Committee, but most of you were not part of that. And given the controversy and the focus on that this year, the presentation has been updated, and the Finance Committee looked at this and recommended for the full board review. So turning to page 4, I'm sorry. Let's take a look before we can get to what we should be doing, what our revenues and expenditures look like, because we're different than a home budget and we're different than a lot of government agencies. Because mostly our difference is that our inflows, our cash revenues, vary significantly month to month. And the largest source of that variation is our payroll tax. As you recall, our payroll tax is over 50% of our revenue, and employers are required to make those payments every quarter. So we get a lot of money in August, November, February, and May, and not so much in every other month. And then the self-employed taxes, which are about $10 million, come in April when everyone pays their self-employed taxes. The other source of great variation are our federal grants. Those typically arrive late in the fiscal year, but we have not much control at all over that. Sometimes it's late in the fiscal year, sometimes it's early in the next fiscal year. There are a couple different sources of those, and you've heard my quarterly reports on when we receive those and when we don't. And so we have to have money in the bank to live with that large variation that we get from the federal government. So if you look at page 5, just showing this graphically, two things will probably jump out. The dark blue bars are the quarterly payroll taxes, so August, November, February, and May. And then the yellow are our federal grants. Now, over on the right in April and June is what typically happens when we get most of our grants at the end of the fiscal year. This is fiscal year 12, our most recent actual. You'll see a bunch of yellow in August. That's because that's what we were supposed to have gotten the prior fiscal year. And you'll notice in the financial reports for fiscal year 12, we footnote everywhere why federal revenues are so high in 12. It's because they were very low in 11 because of that delay. And that is not uncommon, unfortunately. Turning to page 6, we now have the revenue picture. Let's look at the expenditure picture. That is much more level on a monthly basis, with the exception of our deposit to the pension plans that we make each month that has to be made by September. So most operating projects, operating expenses are more or less level, some small variation. But then by early September each year, we need to have enough money on hand to make a $35 to $40 million deposit to the 2 pension funds. So if you look at page 7, you'll see graphically the money flowing out. And again, the yellow is the pension payment. That's in fiscal year 12. We were able to make that in August rather than September. So if you pull that all together, looking at page 8, this shows our net monthly cash flow. So the blue lines going up are months when we have more money coming in than going out, and the red lines below going down are where we have more money going out than coming in a given month. And what that shows in the last fiscal year is that in 7 of the 12 months, we spent more than we took in a given month. And as I've said before, we can't always predict which months those are going to be because of the federal funding. So that means we need a fund balance to start the year to assure that we have enough money each month to operate it to make the September payment. Page 9 is just another way of looking at it. It shows what our unrestricted monthly fund balances are. And it just indicates again that we need to have money at the beginning of the year in order to make it through the year. If you look at page 9, you'll see that there are 3 months when we only have about 40 million in the bank. 40 million is what our average outflow is in each month. So last year, July, January, and March, we were just at a minimum level to cover everything that we needed. Turning to page 10, we looked at this historically. On a relative basis, how is our fund balance compared to where we've been over the last decade? So the blue line, the blue bars, show the absolute level of our unrestricted beginning fund balance. So this would be, you'd be able to look at this in each of our budgets. And if you look at that, you'll see that in fiscal year 2000 and fiscal year 12, it's about the same absolute level of fund balance. But if you look at the top line with the operating requirements, in 2000, our budget was about 219 million, and last year it was about 435 million. So our budget has almost doubled, but our fund balance has remained the same, meaning that on a relative basis, we have less money in the bank to support our operations. And that's following a decade of 2 recessions. So turning to the next section, pages 11 and 12, well, if there are any questions about our situation, I'm happy to answer that. I now want to turn to what's the appropriate, what should we define, what should we measure, and what is the right policy. So historically, Trimet has looked at things in a couple different ways. We had a standard of working capital, which was a fairly complicated definition, but didn't really get at cash, money left over to pay for operations. So in 2009, we began reporting restricted and unrestricted fund balances, and the relevant number for this discussion is our unrestricted fund balance. It's restricted, has to be used for capital projects or bonds, can't be used to pay operations. So that number, the unrestricted fund balance, is the number that's reported to you each month on the investment sheet as unrestricted. So that's the number that we, staff and has been focusing on. Turning to page 13, the question is, what's the minimum unrestricted cash balance necessary for us, given the special cash flow circumstances that we discussed? So conceptually, we have to have enough to meet monthly cash flow without borrowing, and we want to have some contingency so that each month we have money in the bank. And then we specifically have to address our quarterly receipts, federal funding, et cetera. So what staff is recommending is, and we'll get to the specifics, is that to meet these objectives, our beginning fund balance has to be 2 to 3 times our average monthly expenditure. So if we need about, on average, 40 million a month, the beginning fund balance should be 80 to 120 million. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip pages 14 and 15. This is just reiterating our, that this is one portion of our fiscal discipline, and that fund balance and contingency are one-time expenses. So let's turn to page 17 and talk about best practices and what we recommend. As Board Member Prosser knows, any CFO or finance officer, when looking for best practice, looks at the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA. It's the really the authoritative source for best financial practices for governments. And their policy guidelines on this topic state 3 things. First, a governing board should adopt a formal fund balance policy. Then how to get there. You want to say, if you're not there now, what resources are you going to dedicate to get there? One-time revenues, surpluses, year-end surpluses. And then thirdly, what happens if you're not in compliance? Because as we all know, things happen when you're not in control, and you might not be in policy, and what is the practice for getting back to policy? Having said that, GFOA does not have hard and fast rules for every government because one size doesn't fit all. They suggest looking at the predictability of revenues and volatility of expenditures, and we're very high volatility of revenue, as we just discussed. Exposure to one-time outlays, we don't have a very high risk of that because we know our budget pretty well. We're good at budgeting our expenditures. And the third item is the liquidity. So the disparity between revenues come in and when money goes out. Again, we have a very high risk profile there because of 7 months of spending more than we take in. So their general recommendation is, first, tailor it to your needs, and secondly, at a minimum for a general purpose government, at least 2 months of regular operating revenues or expenditures should be hitting fund balance. So the next question is, what is the measure that we're looking at? And when you look at what other governments, other transit agencies do when they talk about a cash reserve policy or a fund balance policy, there are many different ways of measuring it. I've been talking about fund balance because that's what Trimet reports in our budget. That's our spendable resources at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. Other entities will talk about a stabilization fund or a rainy day fund, which are additional reserves set aside. We don't have that. Some people have reserves for capital replacement, where they put money in the bank and use it only to refurbish rail cars or a specific capital purpose, or specific funds for a special risk they have, like tax shortfalls. Trimet does not have any separate defined reserves other than what's in our unrestricted fund balance. And our unrestricted fund balance does include what I will call reserves for insurance liabilities, workers' comp, public liability, revenue volatility. All of those things are incorporated in that one number that you see in the budget. There is no separate account for those. And then importantly, I want to address the concept of contingency, since there was a lot of confusion about that during the budget. Our contingency is built into the ending fund balance. It is not a separate fund in the bank with $20 million in it this year or $10 million in the past. So that the number, when I am encouraging you, when you think about the policy, is to look at our unrestricted ending fund balance plus contingency. The total of those two is the number that we should target. So finally, on page 20, is the staff recommendation and what was discussed with the Finance Committee. And I'll ask the Finance Committee members to comment of what our recommended policy would be with respect to fund balance. First, the minimum unrestricted ending fund balance plus the contingency, so two numbers that show in the budget each year, should be at least 2.5 months of our average operating expenditures. Secondly, that the projected unrestricted fund balance in each month, so what you see on the monthly reports, should be not less than 1 month of our average expenditures, so about 40 million. Then we've made a recommendation on budgeting contingency as 3% of our operating requirements, but this number should be reviewed and is each year annually in the budget process based on the specific circumstances, so that the general manager and the budget officer can bring to you a different contingency number given the specific situation in each year. And then fourth, if these standards are not realized, the corrective plan would be presented to the board in either the next year or over the next 1 to 3 years to bring the fund balance back to policy. And finally, we are not recommending a change in our current practice, so we are not recommending separately funded reserves for any of the other items, rainy day fund, insurance, capital, that we will continue having everything aggregated in the ending fund balance. Page 21 just shows the numbers if we had done this year, so I'll let you look at that. And the Finance Committee, on the very last page, the Finance Committee had asked for information about the size of our budget and budget contingency over the last 10 years. And what this shows